Hi, I'm Stephen Sklar, back with another Coach's Corner on screen. This time not with Coach Blount, though. I'm here with head coach Supple. How are you today, Coach?
Doing well, Steve. Thanks for having me.
The Oceanside Sailors made it into the playoffs, but their run was short and anything but sweet, losing by 20 to the Uniondale Knights on the 20th. First question I got, we spoke about this after your second matchup against the Uniondale Knights and how the referees affected the game, a little bit of deja vu. How much of the playoff loss goes on to the refs?
None of it. That's not something we look at right away. I told the boys after the game, let's make sure we look in the mirror. I won't say the refs were good by any means, but we didn't play well enough to win that day. So we're going to look each other in the mirror. We're going to hold each other accountable, and we're going to figure out what we have to do to get better for next year.
Now, you guys missed some shots. There were some points in time where, you felt like those shots should have gone in. But, of course, Uniondale made their shots. They were hitting their shots from outside. I'd personally say that Evelyn was the best player, hitting 3 threes, but 2 guys scored 18, Jawan Shuford and R.J. Myers-Turner. Take me inside your defensive approach.
Going into the game, the approach was to force them to beat us from the outside. And I think they did a great job knocking down their threes that day. They hit more threes in that game than they have in any game throughout the entire season. So, I give them a lot of credit for that. But we didn't do a good job of taking away the initial drives. Those initial drives created kick-out threes, which we wanted to avoid. We didn't do a great job executing our defensive game plan throughout the entire game. In spurts, I thought we did a good job, but it wasn't consistent enough to beat a team that's now playing for a Nassau County championship.
And, of course, despite the preparation, obviously Uniondale prepares for the same amount of time as you guys. And like we said a couple of times, they were able to hit their shots. And that's something you can't really change. If they're going to knock them down, they're going to knock them down. What was the aura on the sideline early on?
It was up and down. They came out and they gave us a nice punch early in the game. We battled right back and made it a 1-point game late in that first quarter, and then RJ made a great play to end the first quarter. But, we knew it would be a roller coaster of a ride. The emotions were high. We have one guy that's really been through playoff games before on our team. So I think early in the game we were a little nervous, a little anxious. But we settled down, and we made some plays in the first quarter to make it a game again, and then they came back and threw another punch at us.
Like you said, Brian Pod was the only one that had really been through any playoff experience. Jack Forbes had been there. He didn't see a lot of action on the court. Do you think that had a huge factor on it, or do you think that was something very minimal?
No, I think it had a factor. I think even a kid like Brian Pod was anxious as a senior now to be the guy that's supposed to carry you in a playoff game. And that's something that comes with culture and atmosphere and being there before. And I think the experience for us was great. Our meeting after the game was, now it's our turn. We have to pass that quarterfinals in years following. But I think their experience, they're defending county champs. They brought back some guys that played major minutes last year. And I think it showed in that game.
We spoke about last week. I asked you if this was the game you guys wanted after going 0-2 against Uniondale throughout the regular season. You said it's what you wanted. You wanted them to play out of vengeance. Do you think that had more of an effect on the anxiousness or the anxiety the players had during the game?
I don't think so much the team we played. I think the atmosphere of where we played, I think Uniondale did a good job with their crowd. And like you said, I think some calls got the game a little more excited. Parents on both sides screaming and yelling. It was exciting playoff atmosphere. So I think that did it. I think we were confident that we can play with that team. And it was a 6-point game with 4 minutes to go. I'm still confident we can. They just had a better day.
Now we're going to look back at the season as a whole. We see that you beat Pequa twice, you beat Hempstead twice, you beat Syosset twice. What made those teams beatable?
I think our conference was very, very difficult and very, very tight. I mean, even those wins were hard-fought, difficult wins. I mean, from being at a lot of them. I think we were just able to make more crunch time plays down the stretch in those games. But, that's what makes those 3 teams at the bottom of our conference, and the teams we struggle with were playoff teams at the top of our conference. So we have to be able to pull out some wins against the Uniondales and Farmingdales of the world in the future.
Similarly, like I said, like you said, Farmingdale, Uniondale, Freeport, these are the teams that you could not beat during the season. What made those teams the unbeatable teams?
It was those clutch situations. We were up big on Freeport in the fourth quarter. They grinded out and win in overtime, beat us actually twice in overtime. Farmingdale beats us in overtime when we battled back and actually played a very tough game. But again, I think some comes with experience. Some comes with execution and basketball IQ. I thought our decision-making in some of those close games held us back a little bit. Early in the year, we were able to live with it. At the end of the year, you can't do it when you want to win playoff games.
Now, next year, you return a bunch of players, Ralph Amatrano, Austin Ortiz, James Capozzi, who's going to come back off of his injury. What is your confidence level in those returning players after going through what they went through this year?
Our goal next year is we have to be playing in a county championship game. That's our goal. So, obviously, my expectations are high. I believe every player that steps in the gym, their expectations are going to be extremely high. We start working next week, so we're going to start March 4th. Starts our improvement season, and our goal is to get to that championship game.
Now, do you think it's going to be a little bit harder to start this early because you're going to lose some players to the spring sports?
I don't think so. We know we set our groundwork where the spring sport players now, their spring sport is their priority, and that's what they have to focus on. Their goal should be to win championships in whatever spring sport they play. The goal is to get in the gym 2 or 3 times for a half hour a week, and just get shots up and improve on a couple of little things. And then come summer and fall, we'll get back into the full swing. But we have some of our core guys like Ralph, like Dimitri, are basketball-only guys, so there's no excuse for them not to be there all the time.
What do you think is going to be the one thing, out of all the things that could possibly drag you down next year, what's going to be the one setback?
That's a good question. I think the only thing that could hold us back is ourselves. I think if players aren't willing to commit to improvement, I think then the results are all going to be the same. My question to them was, what are they going to do differently to improve? We've been to back-to-back quarterfinals now, which is a good step in the right direction. But my challenge was, what are you going to do differently so that our results are differently in the end of next year? So hopefully they got the message, and we'll find out on Monday.
Now, going into the season, one of the one asterisks next to the team this year was losing Jake Tavroff, was losing Anthorn Garrett and all of that hype. You're going to lose Brian Pod. You're going to lose Rio next year. Do you think that at the beginning of the season you prepared enough for a small ball lineup that it's going to be easier making that transition next year?
I think so. I think 2 years now, a lot of these guys that were also sophomores on JV that are going to be seniors now, they've been running our system, our style for 2 years. So I think coming in the third year running what we want to run, I think it'll help them a lot. They'll come in, kind of hit the ground running. And I think this year we did an okay job preparing. I think the new faces created some mid-season changes in the lineup that we spoke about in the past. And I think that kind of got us going mid-year. But I think going into next year, knowing our personnel so well, I think we'll be able to be pretty strong right away.
Now I want to highlight on a couple of players. Ralph Amatrano, we speak about him all the time on Coach's Corner. He's putting up 24 in a playoff game. He's closing out, season-deciding games, hitting buzzer beaters. What is his ceiling come next season?
His ceiling is extremely high. He's not even close to his ceiling. And we spoke about that in our exit meetings. Ralph has as much potential as any guard in the county. I think he has potential to be Conference Player of the Year next year, all Long Island type player. He can score at will. We're getting him more confident shooting his outside shot because he's an excellent three-point shooter, even though he doesn't always let it fly. Our goal is to kind of expand his game, though. If he wants to be a true point guard, we got to increase his assists. We got to increase his ability to make players around him better. He's a great ISO scorer. One-on-one, I've told him from day one that there's no one in the county that can guard him. So our goal now is to become a better defender. Our goal now is to make everyone on the court around you better.
Similarly, another guard, James Capozzi, who we mentioned before. How does he fit back into the rotation after Austin Ortiz did everything he did to prove himself this year?
I think he fits in a lot of ways. I think we can play 3 guards next year, possibly 4 guards when you talk about like a Matty McCabe, who was only a sophomore this year. I think he's going to be on the floor. He defends well. He pushes the floor well. He's another good outside shooter, which we have to replace a lot of threes by Brian Pod, obviously. So I think he's going to be able to fit right back in. He's got to come in a little mentally stronger next year, understanding the game, understand that there's adversity in this game. And if he handles that adversity, I think he's another very talented player.
You mentioned losing Brian Pod as an outside shooter, the sharpshooter of the team. Who are some of the guys that didn't get their opportunity to shine on the court this year that are going to be into the lineup more often because of their ability to shoot from outside?
That's still to be seen. We'll see in the offseason. But I think Ralph, James, I think Dimitri had a pretty good year shooting from 3. He didn't shoot a ton of them, but he actually shot a very high percentage. I think a kid like Kevin Murphy, who was a streaky shooter, can really step into a role and be able to knock down some shots in the offseason. And our sophomore group has some guys that were up for the playoffs that, not that they're great shooters as of this point, but they have the potential to be, and I think they could give us some good minutes on the defensive end as well.
Another player you mentioned, Matt McCabe. The skill is there. I think it's undeniable. But some of the intangibles set him back this year. What is going to be his main focus point in the offseason?
Is one, to get stronger. He's got to hit the weight room. He's got to toughen up a little bit when it comes to just getting banged around. He got pushed off his spot at times, but he is extremely talented. We're going to try and get more consistent with his outside shot, but he could handle the ball. He's a 6'2" guard. He can handle. He can finish with both hands, but we got to get him a little more physical on the inside around the rim. And just, I think this year's experience, I think he'll come in next year knowing he belongs, and I think that'll go a long way.
With some of the bigger guys like Matt McCabe and like Matty Rossler, they're not big guys. Is your goal to develop them into more powerful 4s and 5s?
Definitely with a kid like Matt Rossler, who's just so new to the game. He also loves the weight room. He's actually a strong kid. I know he looks a little skinny, but he's actually a very strong kid, and he loves the weight room. So I'm not worried about him developing strength. He's got to develop skill and learn the game. This is his first year on a basketball court. So, I know you can't teach 6'6", but he's still got a long way to go. But I think he's going to be an excellent basketball player and an excellent 3-sport athlete. And, our goal already, we've had a couple of kids that started this week, but we're going to hit the weights hard this year. We're going to get stronger, we're going to get faster, and we're going to be more explosive.
Of course, outside making it to a county championship, because that's your goal year in and year out. What is your vision for the 2019-2020 Sailors?
To be fast, deep, and like I said, our goal is to play with the Uniondales and Farmerdales and Baldwins of the world. I think we can be as deep and as athletic as any team in the county next year. Like I said, I think we could have 4 or 5 guards on the floor at times. I think when you talk about the younger kids like a Mario and like a Rossler, you can be 6'6", 6'3", with an Angel Estevez hopefully coming back into the program, another 6'3" guy. We can add size there. So I think we're going to be versatile, but we're going to be more aggressive. We're going to be even faster next year, and our goal is to go in every game and compete.
All right. I appreciate you taking the time to come
down.
Thanks,
Steve. It's been a fun year.
Yes, it has. And, of course, we'll be back next year. I'm Stephen Sklar, here with head coach Supple, final coach's corner of the 2018-19 basketball season. Thank you.